Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. Maura Sullivan, our Director of Government Affairs, will be talking about Nickys Law. We've got a hearing coming up next week and want to make sure everybody's prepared. So, again, I appreciate you joining us. My name's Carrie Mahoney, and I'll be your moderator for today. I just want to make sure everyone's on board okay. We're expecting a lot more people, so that's why we muted you upon entry. This is being recorded. Our social media associate, Katerina, will be also live tweeting this. So once we get this up on our YouTube channel. So there's lots of avenues in case you missed today. So please spread the word. So that's why you're all muted, so we have good quality for our recording. I just want to make sure everybody's okay, can hear us all right. If you could just chat into me, just use that chat box on the bottom of your screen. You can just say hi. We are going to be saving questions to the end. So if you don't want to lose your thought, you can chat in, but we'll be spending lots of time for questions. So no worries, it will get answered. So again, welcome. It looks like everyone's able to hear us okay. So let's get going. So again, thanks for joining us. If you have any issues with technology, the best advice is just for you to log off and log back on, and that really takes over, usually resolves almost any type of question. And also, I am here and you can just chat into me and I'll see what I can do to help. So, all right, take it away, Maura.
Hi, everyone. It's Maura. Thank you so much for being here today to review our advocacy preparation for Nickys Law, the ARC's #1 priority this session. So I wanted to start with a little bit of a review of the bill because I know that not everyone out there who's listening in was with us during our advocacy last session. So I thought it'd be important that we do a quick review and just talk about some of the bill facts. And again, if you have questions that come up, go ahead and chat them in and we'll definitely get to them at the end. But just to mention, we have a new name actually. It's still known as Nickys Law, but it is an act to protect individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities from abuse. And the bill facts that I really think we all want to know going into hearing or just advocating in general for this bill in the coming session are up on your screen. So the bill creates a registry and requires that the names of persons substantiated of abuse against an individual with IDD be placed on this registry. And that abuse finding is issued by the Disabled Persons Protection Commission. So you'll hear me say DPPC during this presentation. The registry is for DDS, Department of Developmental Services, or DDS funded providers only, and expansion is planned. Expansion is on our horizon for sure, meaning we want to get to all agencies and protect all people with disabilities. This registry, though, pertains to the adult service system. So I've had some questions about that as well recently. Providers cannot hire a person on the registry. That's the point of this bill, eliminating those serial abusers. So we're not going to be able to stop abuse from happening, but this bill will help us prevent abuse happening twice or more. And again, just to mention, so everyone knows our really amazing bill sponsors, Senator Mike Moore and Representative Linda Dean Campbell. And those are our current bill numbers. So the bill's been through a couple of renditions, and we currently are Senate Bill 71 and House Bill 101. And I do want to spend a couple of minutes just talking about the history of the legislation. Again, for some people that are new to the bill, but also I don't think everyone has always heard kind of the backstory of Nickys Law. And I want to say that I will not do the history of this legislation justice on a short webinar, especially the first bullet that you see in front of you, the abuse against Nicky. And I want to say that this family, the Chans, who came forward to pursue system change through their lawmakers, are extremely brave and very passionate, and really are representatives for families across our state whose loved ones have been abused, or even for any of us who worry so much about potential abuse. So I won't be able to go into that detail of what they went through, but the fact that they came forward and pursued this avenue is really one of the reasons that we're here today and so close to getting this bill through. At the same time that this was happening with Nicky and his family, the ARC of Mass was pursuing work with a task force with the DPPC, so that Disabled Persons Protection Commission, and the stakeholder community on a mandatory registry. It all came together when Senator Moore took on the lead sponsor role for this bill. And after about a year of due diligence, and this becomes important when we talk about expansion of the registry. We did spend about a year working with the Department of Developmental Services and the DPPC and other agencies and stakeholders across the state, including families and providers. We were then able to fully draft language, and our advocacy began as we prepped to file the bill. So we were able to recruit Representative Linda Campbell, and she filed the bill on the House side as Senator Moore filed on the Senate side. And the ARC began our advocacy campaign, making Nickys Law a #1 priority, and the Chans were willing to then give the bill Nicky's name. Okay, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about why this legislation is really on fire and why we hit some barriers. So as you know, the power of community is amazing, and we prove that over and over with legislation that we've passed throughout the decades. But there is a process, and we all have to remember the process. And when Nickys Law was filed, we did everything according to that process. So we got all our co-sponsors. We had an amazing turnout for hearing. People shared their testimony orally and in writing. Sometimes for the first time, they were sharing their stories. This was incredibly powerful for the Joint Committee on Children, Families, and Persons with Disabilities. And they did what they needed to do. They pushed the bill through and passed it on favorably. At the same time, Dana's Law was also in front of the committee, and this is an incredibly important bill. And we'll talk a little bit more about how those bills came together later on in the webinar. But Dana's Law is similar to Nickys Law, but broader scoped. And so obviously the committee was hearing the importance across all agencies and community for us to get these protections in place. When the bill made it to Senate Ways and Means, after it passed favorably through Children and Families, they did take a good look at the due process that we had in place. And some changes were made to tighten up the due process, meaning the person who was substantiated of abuse, so found substantiated by the DPPC investigation, needed a very comprehensive process of appeals. And this coincides with a lot of work that's being done at the State House across all legislation to really make sure that criminal justice reform is the theme, that we're really paying attention to opportunity for rehab, opportunity to make sure all of the appeal pieces are in place for anyone who's been accused of any kind of crime or certainly in this case of abuse. So those processes were put in place, and the bill was unanimously passed through the Senate. However, on the House side, there was quite a log jam of bills as we moved into the end of session. So getting to get Nickys Law to a priority status in the House was our main focus, and we reached out to our community for that. And you guys were amazing, and we had thousands of letters generated to legislators. We had hundreds of calls to try to get the House to prioritize this bill. And I will say in the end of the formal session, there were probably a couple of dozen pieces of legislation that really should have gotten through the House, but they did not. And Nickys Law was one of those. As we moved into the end of the session, though, we had such huge support from legislators that it was felt that Nickys Law was a very good potential to go through in an informal session, which meant we may not have to wait until the next session and refile, that we could push Nickys Law through over the next few months between August and December. So we began to work on that, and I put this picture up because it just fills me with pride. We had an amazing day at the State House. Actually, the vigil, this is a picture of the vigil, and this was just sort of the beginning of our informal advocacy process, because every day after this vigil, someone was at the State House, or more than someone, advocating for this bill, walking around and trying to get the support that we knew we needed through an informal session. And to just back up for people who don't understand what an informal session really means, is that the bill has to have 100% unanimous support in the informal session. So even if one legislator decided that they weren't 100% sure of the bill or had a question about the bill in any way, it wouldn't go up for informal. So really important that we knew we had full support. So here's where we were as we went into the informal session. We knew that Chair Khan, who had passed the bill favorably through Children and Families, was very, very strong supporter of the bill. We had many other reps who had stepped up and done some advocacy, prioritizing the bill to one of their top three, if not their top bill. We had the Boston Globe noting Nickys Law as one of the top three bills to pass during the informal. But what we faced was a lack of movement, and time was ticking. So what we did again was push the community to be in touch with their legislators, to call the Speaker of the House, to write the Speaker of the House, to work with Ways and Means on the House side to get the bill through. And we had some incredible support and amazing amounts of people come forward. And the ARC was working with leadership and having meetings on the House side. We were also relying on Senator Moore to do what he could do on his side as well. But we had some concerns pop up during the informal, and those concerns came out of some unions and out of CPCS, the Council for Public Services. And this is when we really relied on the Disability Law Center and their role in terms of helping us work through these concerns that popped up. The problem with those concerns are, like I said, if there's even any doubt whatsoever that there'd be 100% support for an informal session, the bill will not make its way to the informal. And it looked like that was going to be our fate due to the concerns of this organization. They had written a letter, and their concerns were 100% focused on the person who was substantiated of abuse, and that person being able to have their rights as during this process as comprehensive as possible. So we attempted to work with the CPCS, the ARC did, and using our strong leadership at the State House, and we had response to their comments. And I think many of you actually probably were able to read the comments and write in to the CPCS to tell them how important this bill really is, and that that we thought that they were really missing the mark. We did not get a good response from CPCS in time, and time was running out. But we were beginning to work on negotiation and collaboration. So as the informal session ended, we truly were at a loss. I think everyone felt like it should have gone through, and we were all extremely disappointed. But we have to keep in mind really that most legislation does not pass in one session, and that this piece of legislation really caught on fire during the informal session, and but it's really very, very tricky to get a bill through in an informal. So we have to kind of pull ourselves back together. We knew we were having some meetings with CPCS to ensure that everyone was on the same page as we moved into the new session, and that their concerns were addressed. So the ARC had that meeting, and we brought in a lot of legislative leadership, and we were able to do some tightening up of the due process, which was part of their concerns. And again, we began the process to prepare for the new session. So as we were working with CPCS and tightening up all of those processes, we were also getting ready to prep for the new session. And in that prep, we were able to get over 100 co-sponsors, which is a great number of legislators that are that are in support of this bill. And one other thing we were able to do was get the bill to an early hearing, and the first hearing, as a matter of fact, in front of children, families, and persons with disabilities through the help and support of Chair Khan and Chair Chang Diaz. So that's where we're at right now. We have April 30th, Tuesday, our first hearing in the new session for Nickys Law. And as we go into that hearing, we have support beyond our community into the State House. We have support from so many organizations, and we have been prioritized by many organizations as well. So I'm going to get to a little bit around hearing preparation before we have to wrap up. So these are tips that I give for every hearing, and I think for Nickys Law, it's very relevant that you engage your legislator, especially if you have a new legislator who may not know about Nickys Law. And we've done our best to get to everyone, but there's you never know if your legislator has missed it. So make sure you reach out to your rep and your senator, because we're not just focused on the House anymore. And let them know that you will be providing testimony to this committee on this bill. Make sure they are a co-sponsor. I would tell them your story. Let them know why this is so important to you, and ask them to speak directly to the chairs and the members of the committee on your behalf. And ask them to make Nickys Law their priority for this session, and that we want it to move early. And I would say hold them accountable by following up. So follow up a week after hearing and ask them where the bill stands and if they can check on that. So I think I would recommend, if you're coming to hearing or you are going to be doing ongoing advocacy, that you check out the Nickys Law webpage, and it is thearcofmass.org/abuse registry. So we just updated that, and you'll find our fact sheets, the due process piece I was talking about, you'll see on our fact sheet as well. And there's so much more information there that you can access. So take a look at that. So for anyone that's providing written or oral testimony, I would just suggest that in your testimony you address the chairs and the entire committee, that you thank them for the opportunity to come before them, and most importantly, that you keep your testimony brief. You will be on a timer if you are testifying orally and in person. And I would say, because this hearing is probably going to be pretty large, that you would probably try to keep your testimony to 2 minutes. 3 minutes is where they will cut you off, and they will cut you off. And so it's much better to wrap it up at 2 minutes and leave some time for questions. We will try to set up some panels as well, so we can talk about that. But what I would suggest that you put in your testimony is really, how does your personal, family, or professional experience support the need for this bill's passage? And don't worry about getting all the facts of the bill correct, or don't worry about what happened last session to the bill. You really just have to tell your story. If a question does come from the committee that you can't answer, I will be there, and other members of the ARC will be there. You can refer to us for a response. But 95% of the time, committee members and the chair won't ask a family member facts about a bill or any kind of tedious question. So yeah, so I think you know the chairs are Chair Khan and Chair Sonia Chang Diaz. They may not both be there, but I'm thinking that they will. So if you're setting up your written testimony, you can always address those chairs, or you can just address it generally to the chairs and the members of the committee. Your written testimony does not have to be short, but keep in mind, people aren't going to read 7 or 8 pages of testimony. So as concise as you can make it is really the best idea. So where we're at now with the hearing coming up, I just want to prepare everybody for what's coming. So we'll get through the hearing. We need to have perseverance because there's a process in place. And I know emotions are really high with this bill, as they are here at the ARC as well. But like I said before, most bills do need more than one session, and we are in really good shape around the support. We are in a formal session now, so even if we did have 1 or 2 or a dozen reps or senators who questioned the bill in some way, or were not 100% behind this bill, we can still push this bill through no problem. And so we're in a better place, but we already know we have lots of support, and we've worked out the issues with our opposition as far as we know. So the process from here is, when the bill hopefully passes through Children, Families, and Persons with Disabilities, it will go to Ways and Means on both the Senate and the House side. It needs to pass both chambers and be ratified, and then it will move on to the governor. So I think I'm going to skip the slide, but yeah, let me just see one thing. Carrie, go back. Did we talk about this slide? Yeah, I think we did. So just getting back to opposition, because I think that's something that people are concerned about. The ARC is definitely prepared for hearing to talk about the work we've done on any opposition to the bill. And we will be working closely with the chairs and the sponsors to make sure we're hearing from any opposition that comes up along the way. So I'm going to go back to the question slide, and I'm going to, where do I take any questions that you might have? Okay, hold on. Okay, so far no one has any questions, but we'll give you some time to chat some in. Okay, so I'm going to take this time to just say that I've talked to a few people that I know are coming to hearing on Tuesday, and I really appreciate that. If you are planning on coming and you want to be part of a panel for the ARC, then you can get in touch with me, email me directly, and you can send me your testimony, which we will send on to the committee, and I can put you on a panel. And if not, you can come and sign up on your own. Just be prepared that the day could be very long. Don't plan on getting out around, lunchtime. I think it will be a longer day than that. We don't know when the bill will come up in the agenda. We're hoping it will come up first because the committee knows that there's going to be a large group of people testifying, but we have no guarantee. Also, legislators that want to testify on their bills always have that advantage to get in first. So be prepared for a longer day if you do plan on coming, and bring copies. If you don't send your testimony to me, bring copies that you can give to the entire committee. And if you have any other questions about the bill, just don't hesitate to get in touch. So I still don't see questions. Oh, do we send a written testimony to you as well? That would be great because it helps me to know, how many people we have. I love to track that to say, we've submitted 50 written testimony. It definitely helps during advocacy. So if you're comfortable sending it to me, that's great. I already have probably about 10 written testimony, and I am expecting it. What I've heard is at least 10 people that are coming to testify in person. And right now we have set up a few panels, which will be Senator Moore and Cheryl Chan. And I think I'll be testifying with Rep. Campbell. And then I know that someone from the DLC, maybe Hillary or Rick or both, will be testifying, and hopefully that will be with Paul and Ann Joyce. And then we have some other people testifying that I've set up on panels already. So I think we're in really good shape, and we appreciate everyone who's going to take the time to come in. And even if you can't, sending your testimony is fantastic, but getting in touch with your rep and senator and letting them know how important this bill is and this hearing is to you, and let them do some work for you as well. Okay, here's another one. If we don't have a personal story, but we want to show support for Nickys Law, does it make sense for us to attend or just contact? Well, that's a great question. Like I said, even if we don't have a personal story of abuse, certainly this can still be our highest priority, and we never want to see anyone who we love go through this. So every bit of support you can show, showing up, and definitely contacting your legislators is important. We do want to have a full hearing room. So if you can come, but you don't plan on testifying, that's fine. Just being there for support is wonderful as well. So maybe you don't, have to plan on being there for the entire day, but but whatever amount of time you can come is helpful. Okay, so final more questions? What time should we arrive? Okay, sorry, I'm slow to respond here. So the hearing begins at 10 o'clock. The ARC will be there early and sign up everyone who has contacted us and wants to be on a panel. We'll try to get those sign-ins done as soon as possible earlier in the morning. If you're planning on testifying on your own and not on a panel, just know whenever you get there, 9:30, 9:15. If you get there around that time, you're going to have an advantage of getting signed up earlier. If you get there right at 10, you may end up kind of at the back end of testimony. But also you have to wait for the bill to come up. So if it's not first and they end up doing it after lunch, you have to wait your time. But the hearing begins at 10 o'clock, and it is in hearing room A2, which your best bet on getting to A2 is to enter the State House through Ashburton entrance. You can certainly enter through General Hooker and find your way downstairs to A2. But if you come in through Ashburton, it's literally walk in, go through security, take a left, it's on the right. I'm waiting for a few more questions. Yeah, okay. All right, well, I think we'll wrap it up. And of course, you can always reach out to me. I'm gonna give you my email in case you don't have it. Thank you. You're welcome. Here's my email, Sullivan, SULLIVAN @arcmass.org. So be in touch, and hopefully I'll be seeing you real soon. Thank you, everybody.